Good evening, booktubers, fellow bookworms. I I was looking at my videos. It was like 22 hours ago that I made a video, and by the time I download this video, it should be 24 hours. I like to make a video every day, even though, to tell you the truth, it's kind of freaky because I don't really think that I'm that interesting. I don't give dazzling book reviews. I'm not funny. I'm not cute. I'm not a young female. Uh, I'm just a I'm just an old guy who loves books. An old Jesus freak. So I'm sitting here tonight. It is 9:49 at night here in West Michigan. It is April the 6th. No, it's not April. I'm always saying April. It's May. It's May 6th, 2017. It is a Saturday night. And I'm sitting here. I was watching booktube videos. I just watched Caleb, Steve. I watched Becky, and I watched some others. And I felt like writing in my diary, because usually I don't write at night. Like I said, I usually close down about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I had some space on this last sheet of paper. I ended on page 407, and I just felt like just writing down stuff. It's kind of weird because, I'm writing this diary down, and I'll put this in the folder. I'll show you the folder. See, here's the May 2017 folder, and I'll put it in here, in the folder, and I'll put it in here like I do every day, every night, every afternoon, every morning. So I put it in the folder. And you know what? It'll never be read again. I won't read it. Nobody else is ever going to read it. I've been married, going on this month, 38 years. My wife never reads my diaries. She never reads my online diaries. She never watches my booktube videos. She hardly even looks at my Facebook account. It's not that I have anything to hide, because everything that I say or do is, I'm totally transparent. I have nothing to hide. I just live a very simple life. It's just very simple. I eat, I sleep, I read, I write. Visit thrift stores, put gas in my old Dodge van. Today I volunteered this is a Saturday, I volunteer at the local library, used bookstore. I'm not going to show the books that I brought home to this afternoon. I got home around 1:20. But I was just going to talk about what I read. I was mentioning I didn't know what I was going to read at the Book Nook, and I was reading this morning. I was reading for devotions, "The Evangelicals: The Struggle to Shape America" by Francis Fitzgerald, and I was reading in here about how evangelicals, Christians, looked at the First World War and the different reactions from the different religious groups, the liberals, the conservatives. And so I remembered a book that I bought last year. And I went down in the lower level and I got it out. And I was reading this, I think I was reading it last year. Let me see. When did this book come out? This came out in 2014. Well, I bought this book and I was reading it and I didn't really finish it, but I got it out of the library, our library down the lower level. It's called The Great and Holy War: How World War I became a religious crusade by Jenkins. So I took this to the Book Nook to read. And that's what I was reading at the Book Nook this afternoon. And this morning I was reading before I left to go to the Book Nook about 9:30. And I read this. No, I didn't. I read this morning. And I read this at the Book Nook. And when I got home, I got in the mail a book that I mentioned I was going to get a book on the First World War. This is the book I got in the mail, To End All Wars, A Story of Loyalty and Rebellion, 1914 to 1918. I'm reading his book, Spain in Our Hearts. I mentioned that. I was reading Spain in Our Hearts. And look at my online diaries. Not my online diary, my paper diary, which has the full title. Spain in Our Hearts, Americans in the Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939, by Adam Hochschild. So I have two other books by him down the lower level that I'll show at a future video. But he is really, he wrote this book on the First World War, and since I've been in the First World War, since I watched that 3-part documentary on the First World War a couple of weeks ago on the public television, and I've always been kind of fascinated with the First World War, that whole time period of the turn of the century, from about 1890 until about the late 1930s, and what was going on in America, what was going on in Europe, Paris, the birth of modernism, the end of the Victorian period, all the art movements that were going on in Paris and France, what was going on just intellectually in the world, not only intellectual, but what was going on spiritually in the world at that time period. So I was reading I've been reading this, looking at it, reading the introduction, To End All Wars, A Story of Loyalty and Rebellion, 1914 to 1918, by Adam Hochschild. You see, this is the other books he wrote, Bury the Change, which is on the history of slavery, and then he wrote King Leopold's Ghost, about the atrocities in French Congo under King Leopold. That's both horrible books, but I might show those in the future. So yeah, that's what I've been reading. End of All Worlds, The Great and Holy War, how the World War became a religious crusade. And I read this morning the Evangelicals. And one thing else, when I was reading the Evangelicals this morning, it mentioned, like I said, this book is a reread for me because I studied American church history in Bible college, and I read it. I studied church history, not only American church history, but European. I've been reading church history for years and years. I've been a Christian going on 47 years, and I started reading church history around 1978, especially since I mentioned in past videos, I read 17th century English Puritan theology and literature, so I read a lot of history of 17th and 16th century British history. Since I am Reformed or Calvinistic, I read a lot of books about the Reformation, Martin Luther, John Calvin, Melanchthon. I took all kinds of classes on the Reformation history. English Reformation, history of Christianity in Scotland, the Netherlands, just goes on and on and on. So, but I was reading this morning, and he mentioned somebody that is very important in evangelical theology, especially the rise of eschatology and different ideas of eschatology. You have dispensational premillennialism, which is a predominant eschatological view among evangelicals today. And it mentions Darby in here. It mentions his writings. It mentions in here Darby. But the point of this whole thing is that I have in our library this set by Darby. It's called Synopsis of the Books of the Bible by J.N. Darby. And this is volume 5, volume 4, volume 3, volume 2, and volume 1. I bought these at some used book sale at somebody's house a long time ago. This was published in 1970. And I bought these, and I have never looked at them. But the reason why I bought them is that when you look at American church history, I like to, you can read about Darby and evangelicals, and the person will summarize their view of eschatology or end times or what's going to happen in the future. But I'd rather read the writings of that individual. So I'd rather read the writings of Darby himself and how he interpreted the Bible or how he understood Scripture. So that's why I bought these, because if I'm going to read about Darby, I'd rather read his writings. So that's why I bought these. And I've been a student of eschatology my whole Christian life. What is going to happen in the future? What are the events leading up to the end of the world? And Darby has his view that he sets forth in his synopsis of the books of the Bible. So that's why I have these. So I don't know, I just got those out. Maybe someday I'll read them. I don't know. They didn't cost that much. I think I paid probably $10 for them. I should look at them. But like I said, I have a huge library, and it just goes on and on and on and on. One thing else I brought also home from the Book Nook was Vanity Fair. I got this issue because the Bruce is on it, Bruce Springsteen. And those who've watched my videos know I have a Bruce Springsteen collection. Now, I'm not a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, but I wanted to read the interview. This interview this is October 2016. And this interview is basically, he's promoting his memoir, Born to Run, which I don't have. I'm looking for a used copy. So I bought that. But one thing else about the Vanity Fair, not only is there an interview with Bruce Springsteen in here, which I read this evening, but also they have a section in here in Vanity Fair where they mention books that are popular or people are talking about. So I always look at that. When I look at Vanity Fair, they have a little section on books. One of the books they mention here is James Gleick explores subversive origins of time travel. Where else will you find H.G. Wells, Proust, and Woody Allen bound up together? Well, that book has come out in hardback, and what I did tonight, I pre-ordered it in paperback, which is coming out in the fall. I have several books by this James Gleick. I have like 2 or 3 of his books. He writes books on technology and science and things like that. I have to go dig them out in my library somewhere, but I pre-ordered the paperback of that. Also, he mentions that biography on Thomas de Quincey by Francis Wilson's Guilty Thing. Thomas de Quincey wrote The Diary of an Opium Smoker. And I've been looking at this biography for a long time, and I still might get it, but I don't know. There's so many. There's a new Scott Fitzgerald biography. There's a new Ernest Hemingway biography, and I buy biographies all the time. I just got so many of them that I haven't read that I can't justify right now buying another one. Not saying I won't, but I don't know. So anyway, I like the photography of the Vanity Fair. That's why I look at it. I like fashion biography, photography. Like I like that of Bruce Springsteen. And then you have a photo of him. He has a horse farm in New Jersey. And there's a photo of him at his horse farm in New Jersey. Nice little study. See his piano there and writing his memoirs. So anyway, that's what's going on tonight here in my book world. Tomorrow is a Sunday. I got books coming in the mail next week. Like I mentioned, I have a church history book, a biography on the writer Harry Crews, and I got some CDs I got the Swans reissue coming. So yeah, and if the weather's good next week, well, it's tulip time here in Holland, which means I don't go anywhere because Holland is filled with tourists who don't know what they're doing, don't know how to drive. There's so much traffic here, and we get over 100,000 people into tulip time, and the town just becomes, you just don't want to go anywhere if you live here in Holland. So anyway, I might visit local thrift stores. Oh, one thing else I was going to mention, as far as knowing about books, every month I pick up at the library the book page. My wife always has me get these. She gives this one to a friend of hers, and it's a good little source to find out what books are out, and little summaries, little reviews. So yeah, I was going to look up at this book tonight, Warlock Holmes, The Hellhound of Baskervilles by G.S. Denny. I don't know, I might look it up. Look kind of interesting. So yeah, tomorrow is May the 7th. I'll be on page 409 tomorrow if I wake up, if I don't die in my sleep, or the Lord comes back and raptures the church out of this world. So I'm hoping you're having a good weekend. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the subscribers. And until next time, bye.